right. This college football playoff was altered because of the demise of the Pac-12 from a 6+6, meaning 6 conference champions and 6 at-large bids, to 5+7. Do you have any thoughts about the college football playoff?
I mean, I think it opens the door for, I mean, honestly, it's probably going to be more Big Ten and SEC teams, to be honest, because those are, basically the Fox College Football League and the ESPN College Football League, and they're going to push for more of their teams to be in the conversation and in the playoff because, money. And I get it. It does give, with an extra at-large bid, right? So 5 conference champions, that being Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big 12, and then the highest ranked of the group of 5 champions being the automatic 5. You got 7 slots. So, I mean, like, you can think that's an extra slot going from 6 at-larges to 7. That's an extra slot that could go to Miami. If we're being Miami-centric on this Miami show, talking to this Miami blogger who's a Miami alum. Like, yeah, I get it. I don't know that the ACC and ACC team, unless there's like a real level of excellence, would be in contention for that spot, because ostensibly, I'm thinking, right? So you're going to have probably the runners-up from, SEC championship game, Big Ten championship game. So the losers of those, that's 2 right there. Notre Dame, if they do their thing, that's 3 as an at-large, because they're not, they would never get a conference championship slot because they're not in the conference still. So Notre Dame's in a conversation. And then, like I said, you're going to go back and forth and say, hey, maybe the third best team in the best team in the Big Ten and or SEC, not even to make it to the championship game, they're probably going to get in. And so then it's just like, well, is the second team from the ACC of the level of excellence to override the external financial concerns and of the playoff, and basically college football being owned by Fox and ESPN at this point. So that's where things come in. And then honestly, it needs to be, that team has to have that kind of caliber to them, and it has to be too, because I don't know that there's a scenario that I see the ACC getting 3 teams in. Like, it's going to take 2001 Miami and 15 Clemson and 13 Florida State all existing in the same universe of the same season to get 3 teams in. So does it open the door for that second ACC team to slot in, at 11 or 12, since there's 7 at large bids? Yeah. But being realistic about it, I don't think that the ACC is probably going to get 3 teams in, but I think that, having the extra slot could potentially be helpful for Miami or any other ACC team. But I could just as easily see that going to 4th best SEC team or whatever, as opposed to diversifying the pool and like going, to another Big 12 team or, another ACC team or another group of 5, even champion. I don't even know if that would be how it goes, but it'll be very interesting. Yeah.
If you guys want my thoughts, posted a video on the playoff tweak, the new format. Give it a look. I will say this toward what you are addressing here would be, look at this last Big Ten season. So there were There was an undefeated team in Michigan. There was a one-loss team in Ohio State. There was a two-loss team in Penn State.
That only lost to those teams.
That lost to those two teams, as they have the last 2 years. Then you've got the 4 incoming from the West Coast, with Oregon with a one-loss team and Washington a 2-loss or a 0-loss team. So even consider this. So those 5 would have been in the playoff from one conference. Now, I understand that the schedule's different, going to be different and slightly tougher, but this is how I kind of filtered through that, was that Penn State is not going to have to play Ohio State and Michigan going forward, both of them each season. So they're trading a difficult game that they lost for another difficult game. So even if they lose that game, even if you tack on 1 to 2 losses for everybody but Penn State, they still all make the playoffs. They're undefeated and one-loss teams. So they're still going to make the playoffs. Because I've run the numbers, and basically 10-2 is the guarantee that you are in the playoffs. 9-3, it drops considerably to maybe 20% of the time are you going to make the playoffs. Now, what I want to see is whether the playoff committee is going to go into this in a sense that you're not necessarily leaning, but you laid out the groundwork for a Big Ten SEC centric, initiative that these are the better teams. Therefore, we're going to give those 2nd and 3rd and 4th slots to those teams. Even if they play it straight, let's say there's no influence based on television and ratings and money and all those things, and there's not a bias toward, well, we just assume that they're the better conferences. They're obviously going to judge the non-conference games, the big major non-conference games, as being that deciding factor. And then also, as we saw during the playoff era of the 4 teams, the SEC built up this equity of being a postseason juggernaut that gained them preferential treatment, even though it shouldn't have, because each season should be judged on its own merits, but gave them that preferential favoritism from history, from a historical standpoint. So I'll be curious to see if they how they approach it from those angles. And one other thought here is that even though everyone tends to believe, and I get it, that the money drives it and the TV ratings drive it and the big brands drive it, until this Florida State situation in 2023, for the first 9 years of the playoffs, the playoff committee took in order the Power 5 teams with the best records. They never jumped a team, let's say, that was 10-2 over an 11-1 team. They never did that until this Florida State situation.
Right. Very true. And everything you bring forward, especially with adding Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten cadre, is true. And that was 5 teams. I'm just going to give you teams that were 10-2 in the regular season, like you said, right? In the SEC, that was Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, Georgia, and Missouri last year. So between those 2 conferences, we just gave you 10 teams at or above the 10-2 line for the 12-team playoff. Good luck if you're another team outside of that. And honestly, some of those teams are getting screwed in the 12. Even now, I know, okay, well, they're going to play each other and the math's going to be slightly different. Yeah. But just going off of what we saw last year, 5 teams over there, 5 teams over here, and not enough seats. It's going to be very interesting. But, I would love for Miami to interject themselves in the situation by winning games, as Leroy talked about earlier. So hopefully we are able to do that.
So take what you just did and take the ACC and the Big 12 into consideration. Florida State would be in a 12-team playoff, of course. They were 13-0. So they're in. But Louisville's the second-place team in the ACC. They lost the conference championship game to fall to 10-3.
10-2 regular season. See ya.
Texas won. Now, they wouldn't even be a Big 12 team going forward. But whomever would win that Big 12 championship game gets the automatic bid. Oklahoma State was the conference championship game loser. They were 9-4.
Oh yeah,
they're not getting in.
Not, so it's gonna be interesting. I think there's gonna be more of a fight for the 8 through 12 seeds moving forward. But yeah, it will be very, very interesting. But every game still matters, only to extent, because it's fun. It's fun to laugh at them, but like having Florida State left out was, I mean, like, yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow, because it's just like, look, they did everything they were supposed to do. They changed the way that they did it. And again, you guys know I respect Florida State. I do not like them. I cannot stand them people up in Gainesville. But they did everything that they were asked to do in a multitude of different ways, and then got left out. So that was challenging, because it's just like, yeah, and I get it, and I know Jordan Travis is a college kid, reacting emotionally. He's like, well, damn, I wish I would have fucking broken my leg in September if da da da. Now, they don't win all those games without him, just period. That's just the way it is. But there's a lot to that conversation. But yeah, it goes to your point, though. If you have so many teams in the power conferences, which really is Big Ten and SEC, you might get one from these other conferences, but now with the extra free open bid, potentially that's where a second team from the ACC could slot in, if it went down that way. But it's going to really be a show and prove why your level of excellence exceeds others for any ACC team that's not the champion to get in to the playoff. And like I said, that's now, like, having gone down, this really kind of illustrates what I was talking about maybe 2, 3 is a bridge too far. You're not jumping all those teams from the money conferences, but you're just, even with a similar record, even if you had a head-to-head against one of them, you might jump that one, but then cool. It's just like, great. I got 12 more to try to get in front of it. I don't know if that is going to happen.
And look at the non-conference schedules for these teams. The likelihood of one of them facing in a non-conference game the exact team that they're going to be measured against in a head-to-head is obviously the odds are slim.
Well, I mean, yeah, but there's also, I like that we are getting the cross-sectional games back, so like Texas and Michigan, are playing, State and Oregon. Well, that's damn a conference game now, but, you get the point.
What is Miami's big? Well, Miami's got Florida this year.
Right, yes.
Yeah, that's their big non-conference game. Okay.